We have a problem.
I thought it was safe.
Your future has arrived.
Yeah, and so there's been times where I've just genuinely wanted to have a discussion to find out, okay, I understand your views and values are different than mine. Let's talk about that. And as I said earlier, we don't get 5-10 minutes into the conversation, and there's this just dark cloud hanging over the air, and that's never happened between you and I.
Nope.
So why can't we in America have more conversations like Hans and Hunter?
Because who is going to turn on C-SPAN? You know what I'm saying? It's boring. So there has to be something with red flashing breaking news and banners and this, that, whooshes and whatever commercials.
Yep.
In order for people to be interested, but the interest should not come from a sense of entertainment value. The interest should come from an interest in wanting to understand and wanting to learn. And I think that those two components are if not gone, at least very little present. People are not necessarily after news or anything like that to learn. You don't turn on Donald Trump in order to learn and understand. And he actually understands that very well and plays on that basic instinct, if you want. Because you're sitting there looking at him, waiting for the next outrageous thing that he'll say, or thing that you either can strongly agree with or strongly disagree with, and that makes you watch.
Oh, that's I don't necessarily disagree with that. He's definitely an entertainer. He's a celebrity. Yeah, he's definitely brought that into the White House. And so sure, there's that, and there's always a debate amongst my side of the coin about whether he should tweet or not. A lot of people don't like the tweets. I don't like a lot of his tweets, but I said from the get-go, in the early days of him announcing his candidacy, many of my conservative right-leaning friends were just mortified that oh my gosh, I could never vote for this man. He's just a maniac, he is a celebrity. That's all he cares about, Who really knows the guy? Is he really a conservative now? All of these things. So there was this disdain for Donald Trump. And look, many things he did were cringeworthy and still are.
I was going to say, there's no hope in the past sense, but go ahead.
Yeah. But the reason why I bring up the past is because at that time I said, guys, in my opinion, and I hope that I'm right, and he doesn't prove me wrong, but I think most of this is for effect. Most of it is he is a fighter, and he realizes that whether he truly believes it or not, he realizes that the folks on the right feel like they've been their mouths have been shut. They've been told they can't say anything, that the media is not on their side, the media is on the left side. Whether this is true or not, that he is going to fight, and he's using these platforms to stick a middle finger to the other side. And again, some of that, a lot of that's cringeworthy, but we feel like now finally someone is on our side, able to say something that it might not be the most politically correct thing. They're not afraid to say it. And I think that's why he's won, and then why he has so much support. and not only in the more conservative areas, but in the middle, more the middle ground states. So, but whether or not that continues to feed and elevates the divide and the tension and the inability for Americans to have civil discourse, yeah, I think it does. I think it's pushed by him pushing back so aggressively against the things we've been frustrated about. It's elevated the situation, right? That's one of the reasons I want, other than this is fun and we get to spend more time together,
Right.
which being, I mean, you're in New York. Where do you live in New York? What's the name of your town?
Patterson, New York.
Patterson, New York, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. So Hans is in the heart of liberal land, and I'm in the heart of Trump country.
Actually, you'll enjoy the fact that my county, Putnam County, is the only Republican county in the area. The real Republican area of New York is much further upstate.
And they haven't found you and kicked you out yet?
It's one of the reasons why I don't talk to any. I don't talk to any of my neighbors.
Oh, that's funny. But again, one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast is because we are able to have civil discourse and still remain friends and love each other, and our families have gotten together. I've spent the night at your house. You spent the night at my house.
Yep.
Not together, you and I, but our.
and lo and behold, I did not get shot while entering your property, and.
But you did try to confiscate my gun though while you were there.
Yeah.
No,
All right,
my kids still have very fond memories of you. My kids are grown now, but they remember Hans pushing them around in the shopping basket at the store, and I mean that you were like a real dude. My point is, like our discussions over dinner in New York, the many dinners we've had over in New York, our course of discussion just goes all over the place. And so we're going to do that. It's usually we stick to politics, but we go from, and you're the king of deflection. When I ask you a question about something, you are the master of subtly changing that to something else. And I have to, an hour later, bring you back to the topic.
I thought, quite frankly, that the king of deflection is actually sitting in the White House. But anyway.
Part of the interesting thing about this podcast, I think, could be that we both, before the podcast, we both go out and buy the same bottle of wine, and we talk about beforehand. Okay, this time we're going to do a Pinot Notage from South America. I'm sorry, South Africa. All right, and we'll both sip on the wine and we'll comment on the wine a little bit and what we're drinking today and what vintage is it and where's it from and what.
Sure.
It'll be fun.
Well, but that's more for you because you're more of the wine connoisseur. So that would be more of a podcast themed that an idiot that just likes wine.
No.
No?
There's symbolism in this. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Symbolism is that not only are we friends and we can have civil discourse about politics, but we're consummating that by imbibing, we're drinking a glass of wine. That's always been in Europe. Okay. You guys, families, you have a bottle of wine, you sit and you talk and you drink and for 2 hours over dinner. It's symbolic of our love for one another. All right.
And I just thought the wine was to get us wasted and eat steak that is too expensive, but
it'll also loosen us up and make us funnier, I think. And it also represents the blood of Christ that has forgiven you of all your sins, Hans.
Yeah, let's not touch on the blood of Christ, because that reminds me of that clip that I saw somewhere where people had the nerve to attend a church service, and on their way
Yeah.
out, when asked why they got it into their right mind to go to church, said that they didn't care because they were covered by Jesus' blood. And and I thought to myself, that is so weird to me, because fine that you believe that, which by the way is not my belief, but that's for myself, but that's fine. But it also means that you either don't understand or you don't care.
You don't
That
care. You don't care. Yeah. Yeah.
that you could give that virus to somebody who chooses to not be covered in Jesus' blood. You know what I'm saying? That is just weird to me.
Oh,
Like,
don't get me started.
okay,
As a Christian, I can be the first to tell you, there's an incredible amount of stupidity in the church.
right,
So I totally agree with you. That's just like putting a finger up to your fellow man, which the first tenet of our faith is love your neighbor as yourself.
well, and I
So-
understand that those are luckily they are the exceptions more so than the rule. But then I just
Yep.
heard right before we started this podcast, I saw that in Kansas, the Republican, either the Supreme Court or what it was, overruled the Democratic governor who had put a ruling in that church gatherings were not allowed for Easter. So in other words, there's going to be church gatherings for Easter in Kansas. That is just bizarre. Playing with lives for your political or religious beliefs is just not the right thing to do right now. I realized that I need to make notes of what you're saying, because, for example, when you say that Trump got elected and your side felt that he was representing you, that would be my first comment, that the president of the United States is not there to represent only one side, right?
Absolutely.
He's there to represent everybody in the United States. And I think that with his statements that he makes oftentimes, and his basic attitude, whether it's towards the left, whether it's towards people of a certain skin color, whether it's towards people of a certain level of wealth, or whatever it is, he is always in the process, in my mind, of dividing up the pie in different pieces, and he doesn't speak of and look at the pie as a whole. And I find that to be a very, very basic problem. Whether he's Republican or Democrat, I don't care. The president is there for all Americans, and I think, in my view, that he represents only part of the country.
Well, I think he is there for all Americans. I think his approach doesn't appear that he is a lot of times, because he does have a short fuse. He does say what he thinks, but I believe, based on the actions and the results of his presidency, that there are so many Americans of color, of different persuasions, have been positively affected by it. And this is a question I have for you, which I ask my daughter, because they bring up the race issue all the time, and that he says things about people of color. Give me some examples of those.
Well, let's start at the beginning, which can be done in two ways. Either at the beginning of him as a person showing a certain racial bias, in my view, or at his start running for the presidency. The beginning of him the best example of him as a person showing racial bias going back to in time is the Central Park 5 situation. I don't know
how far back.
How familiar you are with that. That is I think that was in the mid-90s, where 5 black kids were suspected of I think robbing and raping, or at least assaulting a woman, a girl in Central Park. And they were arrested for that. They have been recently exonerated because it turned out that they were innocent. But anyway, during the course of that, Donald Trump took out a full-page ad in the New York Times and basically advocated for the death penalty for these 5 people that have become known as the Central Park Five. And he never apologized for that, including after it was proven that they were innocent, and he was asked about that. He did not see any reason. These are his words paraphrased because I don't recall them literally, but he did not see any reason to apologize for basically asking for the death penalty of 5 innocent black kids.
Okay, but who's bringing the issue of color into this?
Well, because he wouldn't have put that page in the paper had it been 5 white kids.
How do you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, I'll give you that.
Okay, so next.
The next is the issue of the statements that he made after he came out down the famous escalator regarding Mexicans coming to our country.
Okay.
Where, he made some unnuanced statements about most of them being rapists and criminals, and then saying that I assume some of them are fine people or something along those lines. The way that he worded that, in my view, intentionally, for the purpose of, getting hits, if you want, right? Driving the message home. He was playing into the basic feelings down, the belly. He was trying to how you call that? Appeal to the belly feelings of certain people that Mexicans or other people coming into our country jeopardize our way of life.
Okay, I don't disagree that he probably wasn't using choice words. We all know Donald Trump speaks off the cuff, right? I mean, that's how he talks, right?
Yes. It's a wrinkled cuff, by the way. But go ahead.
Okay. but is there not truth in his, now bear with me, okay? Is there not truth in his statement that there are murderers and rapists and child traffickers and sex traffickers and drug cartel members and violent people that are coming into our country because of this loophole? Now it's not to say most of them are, and there I agree with you that if he said that, man, he should have thought before he said it. But there was not untruth in his statement.
That is correct. But if you transpose that statement across the population of the United States, then you should send all Irish home also.
Well, but did they come here illegally?
Yeah, of course. I don't think any Irishman, Italian, or European that came here 100 years ago came here with a visa. They just came here. They got on a boat and they came here, right?
But they went through the process, right?
The process was that you went to Ellis Island and you wrote down your name and where you came from, and then you were allowed into New York City if you weren't sick. I think there were some exceptions, but it had nothing to do with where you came from or what your religion was, or there was no such thing as illegal or illegal immigrant. It didn't exist. It was just an immigrant.
So are you advocating that America should be completely open border to anyone?
No, not necessarily, although I don't see what the problem would be if we did that. But, we have agreed with each other that there should be some sort of qualification process, in the sense that if you come into this country, that you kind of have to show that you can sustain yourself for the time being, whether it's because you have a certain skill, or because you already have a job, or you're married to somebody who was born here, such as myself, by the way. That's how I came into this country as an immigrant.
Right.
Then that should be sufficient qualification.
Well, then where do we disagree? Because that's exactly how I feel.
So the problem becomes if the system that we have creates queues of people that want to come into this country. So in other words, if there is 10 immigration officials at JFK and 1,000 Hanses come into the country, to where there is a waiting period before that immigration official can review my situation, what do you do with those people? Because that really is the core of the whole problem that we had at least. I don't know if it's still going on. I assume it is at the southern border, right? Because again, this whole story that people are walking through the desert and walking through fences and all of that, and that's how we have an invasion and a caravan into this country is nonsense. Because the vast majority of people, don't ask me about percentages, but it is the majority, coming in to this country from wherever they come from, including Mexico, are coming in through the regular ports of entry, be it airports or cities or otherwise. The problem is, if too many people come at once, then a waiting line occurs. And now the question is, what do you do with these people? And at some point in the past, we decided that waiting period could not exceed, I believe it's 10 days or 14 days, something like that. And if for whatever reason the system is not able to process these people within that time, then you have to let them into your country. And now they become illegal immigrants in the eyes of some people, and we have 11 million of those. Well, those 11 million also include, I suppose, people that came walking through the desert. I'll give you that. But anyway, the majority of the people that are in this country without paperwork have come in through legitimate means, either because they have family here or because they came here and they exceeded the time that in the past we agreed upon was humane to keep people waiting in some form of detention or holding. Mm-hmm. And those people we now basically brand as illegal and not welcome here, and they should go back to their country that they came from. And that is what I have a problem with that overall sentiment. I don't necessarily have a problem with the mechanism or the considerations. What I have a problem with is with the sentiment.
I have a problem with the sentiment too. I think that, okay, well, first of all, the county that I live in Tennessee, is a very large Mexican Latino population. Okay, and many of them don't speak English. Maybe I shouldn't assume, but I assume that a large percentage of those have come here illegally. Not through the process, or through the process that you just through the broken process. Okay.
By the way, you realize that by saying they don't speak English, in which you assume that they should do that because that is the native language in this country.
No, that's not why I'm saying that.
Okay.
Hans, don't go there.
I was going to say, because then you forget that you stole that language from another country without ever asking for their permission.
I know, and we stole the land from the natives too,
right.
But no other country or no other generation throughout history did that to anybody else. Only Americans. So let's just get that one out there, okay? So, but I only say that I am assuming that a lot of these folks are here through the broken process or here illegally. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I shouldn't assume that. But I'm going to assume that that's the case because we had such a large growth of Latin folks here in this area in such a short period of time.
Okay, I agree with you.
I am delighted that they are here because it's a true American spirit. They're hardworking. They're family people. They love their families. They want to work. They're generous people. They're sweet people. That said, the process is broken. I want them here. I want them to come through a process that's not broken, and that's really the issue is, as far as I'm concerned, and most of the people on my side of the political spectrum, we talk about it. We just want the system to be fixed. The conspiracy.
Right. So sorry. Go ahead.
Hang on, the conspiracy theory feelings that come out of us is that the Democrats and the left don't want to fix the system because it means more votes for them. And I have a hard time believing that there's truth in that, because why hasn't it been fixed? Why hasn't it been addressed? Administration after administration after administration. This goes on and on and on, and it never is taken up in a legislative forum to be dealt with. It's always just one side fighting.
Let me interject there, because I assume that you have heard of DACA, right? And the Dreamers.
Yeah. Yep.
And so the Dreamers and the DACA Act were put forward for a vote during Obama's term.
Right.
And it was voted down. And in my view, is the only reason that it was voted down is because Obama lost all his political capital in giving us what should be the topic of our next podcast, which is ACA, also known as Obamacare. So people were voting against his proposal for the sake of voting against his proposal. But I want to take one step back, which is I agreed with everything that you were saying, in the sense that the system is the system of immigration is broken because things have gotten out of balance, right? Immigration requires requires a certain balance. And you can debate on the details of that balance, but there needs to be a balance, and we went out of balance. What happened, though, under Trump in particular, is that we started to look at those people that came here that caused that system to go out of balance as being the cause of that imbalance, versus looking at the system and the politicians that created that system. And what then?
I don't think that's.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Sorry.
And then ultimately ourselves, because we are the ones that elect our politicians, and our politicians are the ones that put that system in place. So it's not their fault; it's our fault. You and me.
I agree. Totally agree.
Well, great. I'm glad
because
I'm glad to know that you will vote Democrat next time. But go ahead.
I totally agree with you. It's not the people's fault. It is our inability as the inability of our elected officials and our government to put down their political talking points and find common ground and do something about it. And I don't know.
So if you effectuate, actually, because the law was there technically, but it wasn't being enforced. If you actually enforce the law to separate mothers from their children, because technically you cannot detain somebody with their child being in the cell with you, or you have a situation of people that have to lock themselves in their car so that ICE cannot grab them because they're not allowed to break into the car. Then you have a situation where, at least from the looks of it, you're putting responsibility and blame on people that essentially don't deserve that blame. And that is my problem. Even if you have the law that you can detain an illegal immigrant, you should never make that result in a situation where you have to separate the parent from their child and then detain the parent because of technicalities. That is inhumane and un-American, and no matter what your political position is, you should never agree that happens to any person, whether in your country or elsewhere in the world, for that matter. That is my position. So I would never allow that to happen. I will never vote for anybody who even thinks that that is okay for the purpose of the other people in the country. Totally wrong. Inhumane.
Did Obama not do that?
No. So
He
the
didn't.
point is that the law was there, but he did not enforce the law. So technically, yes, the law was there, but it wasn't being enforced. It wasn't until Trump and Alabama, the Attorney General, what's his name?
Sessions.
Jeff Sessions
Yeah.
came in, where they looked at existing laws on the books, saw this law, and thought that that was a good way to basically create a deterrent. Because, again, that is my opinion. You can argue with that, but in my book, that was only done to create a deterrent and show people that were coming up from Nicaragua or wherever, you'd better not make it to the U.S.-Mexico border, because you're not going to encounter pleasantries there. And that in itself is not necessarily a bad thing, to discourage people from coming. But to do it to people that actually do come in is, in my view, unacceptable.
Gotcha. Well,
So I've given you two examples, and one we went into a little more in depth, and then the last thing I'll mention.
But hang on. Neither one of those prove that he's a racist.
So I have never said that he's a racist.
Okay.
What I have said is that he puts groups of people, whether they have skin color, whether they have wealth, whether they have male or female parts, up against each other. He thinks in compartmentalized groups of people that, in my mind, are related to how he manages his popularity and his ratings.
Well, Hans, the Democratic Party throughout history in America has been the party of class warfare and putting groups of people against each other.
So,
absolutely.
Then that's the topic of our third podcast, which is the American system as a whole sustainable, which is a whole other topic. But Trump is an exaggerated example of that, because I agree with you that all politicians in a way are involved in class warfare and all that type of stuff. But Trump is an exaggerated example of that, and he creates more damage than he does good. Maybe he creates good for you because he gives you a tax break, and he gives you the feeling that America is yours again. Whereas, by the way, in the next few years, the majority of Americans will be non-whites, and they may not even speak English. But that's a whole other topic.
Fine. That's fine.
And so, that is where I believe that moderation in your belief system creates a better leader than this extremism.
Time out. You're off subject. The specific question was, why do you think he is racist, or what has he done to demoralize or demean people of color?
So I mentioned the Central Park Five. I mentioned his speech when he came down the escalator in Trump Tower, and his subsequent actions by most prevalent example, separating children from their parents. And the third example are his statements after Charlottesville. There are fine people on both sides. That to me was so unbelievably unacceptable. And one of the reasons I have to say is probably a personal one, which is, that should be part of the introduction probably, but I'm the child of parents who lived through the Second World War in the Netherlands.
Right.
And people that do evil have no good side, none whatsoever. So there's that. So that, in my mind, disqualifies Trump to be my leader.
That's the big one, and that's the one everybody. That's why I asked, because that's the one everybody points to when this subject comes up, and when I ask the question, Charlottesville. So that's why I asked you in the first place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So. Right.
And then we have the gun. Control discussion.
Oh, we have so much to talk about.
You know, because earlier when you said that you welcomed Mexicans in your neighborhood, I thought that was because you liked target practicing, but apparently that was a different reason.
See. That's just mean. God.
I love you, brother. I love you.
I love you, man. Most important and most enjoyable for me is getting to spend time with you, albeit that we're 1,000 miles away, different locations, but I'm getting to hang with you. So always a pleasure.
Not in spirit, brother, are we far apart. In spirit, we're close.
That's right.
In our beliefs, we couldn't be further apart. Geographically, we're apart, but in spirit, we're close.
We are, and I think this podcast is going to show the American people that not only Hans and Hunter are more similar in their beliefs and what they want for mankind, but the American people are much closer than they think. Wasn't that beautiful?
Beautiful. My sign of words would be that we both have a GPS of where to go in life, and with this country, your GPS is just broken.
See, here I gave you this beautiful hope for America, and then you went there.
I like yours better.
I thought it was safe.
Your future is beyond your future.